Kia ora tātou.
I call the Honourable Member Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, budgets are about priorities, and Budget 2013 writ large once again that tertiary education is not a priority for this national-led government. It is a slow and painful attack that's changing the way we view and approach tertiary education in this country. It is a long and steady shift. It's a long and steady shift from public provision to private provision. It's a long and steady provision from backing our students to study to not backing them and for not investing in our future. This budget missed the opportunity to invest properly in tertiary education and in New Zealand students in the process. This is yet another anti-education budget from this government that we've seen in the last 5 years from this government. That education is a cost to be cut and not something to invest in. We've seen this in so many areas, and notably we've seen it in the area of tertiary education. But this really isn't surprising, given the Minister in charge of tertiary education, Stephen Joyce, sees tertiary education as something that needs to be dampened down. Tertiary education isn't something that we see as positive for the future of our country anymore. No, we have a minister with the self-declared aspirational aim of dampening down demand. A minister who thinks success in his portfolio is turning students away from our tertiary institutions rather than enrolling them and empowering them with the skills and the learning that a tertiary education can give to people. This is what aspiration for New Zealand has come to mean under this government. Cost cutting and turning people away. We saw it in the last budget where we limited access to education with cutting student allowances for postgraduate students. Because this government might talk big, the rhetoric of the fact of where we need to be an innovation-led economy, that innovation is our future, research and development, but they turned off the tap of their innovation incubator, postgraduate study. We've seen this government had to concede, and this minister have to concede, that his moves in the last budget has meant we have fewer postgraduate students in this country now as a consequence. This is something that we will pay the price for a long time to come. And what did we have in this year's government? What group did the minister turn his guns on to dampen down demand for education? Those over 40. And Mr Speaker, as a 39-year-old, I take great umbrage at the fact that this minister doesn't think that someone over 40 cannot learn anything else. This is a government that is really taking literally the idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is a government that is ready to throw anyone over 40 on the scrap heap and tell them that they are not worth investing in, that they have nothing to offer the nation, and that we will not as a nation get any benefit from retraining them. They are telling people over 40 all over this country, we don't need you. By limiting student support and student allowance to 120 hours for those over 40, we are denying ourselves as a country the opportunity in so many areas. This is a budget of lost opportunity. You know, the National Government and the National Party, National Governments past and the National Party used to believe in the notion of lifelong learning. Even while we were chasing Lockwood Smith out of windows at the University of Canterbury in the 1990s, he still did believe in the notion of lifelong learning. He still thought that people, whatever their stage in life, had something to offer and something to contribute. But what we've seen in terms of tertiary education in Budget 23 in 2013 is once again National's commitment to the two-speed economy. The two-speed economy in relation to geography. This is a government, when it comes to tertiary education, that has given up on the regions. It has made funding decision after funding decision that is leaving the regions cold in terms of the provision of tertiary education. It is a government that simply does not believe it. Members opposite are telling me this is rubbish, and Anne Tolley in particular is calling out something. Well, I'm going to talk about EIT and that minister's electorate and what EIT has lost under her government. The fact that level 1 and 2 provision has fallen all over New Zealand and most notably in the regions. Because when that government made a decision to competitively tender out level 1 and 2 foundation tertiary education, they made a decision to do national provision. That national provision has meant regions all over New Zealand suffering. And Anne Tolley, instead of barracking across the House, might like to give some thought to what it is that the region that she represents has lost. What has EIT lost since her government has been in government? Well, they lost $2.3 million in 2013 as a result of that competitive tendering. That's right, $2.3 million cut from the budget. Fewer students in that part of the country that can stay in that region and receive their tertiary education. All this at a time as 2,574 people from Gisborne and the Hawke's Bay permanently migrated from that area to Australia. This is not a government that is willing to back our regions. This is a government that has seen apprenticeships in that area, that minister's area, fall by 40% since 2008. This is not a government that is backing the skills training and the education of our young people. While all the time the Hawke's Bay has a skills shortage in the area of industrial electricians, welders and precision engineering. All things that could have been taught at EIT if this government hadn't decided to slash funding and slash costs. But it's not just that minister, Anne Tolley's area, that has lost funding. Canterbury, and as I mentioned, Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, Nelson, Marlborough and the West Coast, Otago, Taranaki, Waikato and Wellington have all seen net loss of level 1 and 2 provision in their regions because of the cuts this government has put in place. What we have seen is $51.6 billion less going into our polytech sector since budget 2011. A further $38 million was put out for this private provision. And where did this $38 million go if it didn't go to our polytechs? That's right, it went to private training enterprises. Again, continually the theme of moving from public to private provision of tertiary education in this country. This is something that this government cannot be proud of. This is a government that is letting down its young people and is not properly providing tertiary education opportunities in our regions. In so many areas, this is a government that has no plan for and has given up on regional New Zealand. And tertiary education is just another area where that government has done it. It is time that we had a new approach. Labor is proud of its history, from Peter Fraser right through to last time we had government, in the way in which we backed tertiary education. We democratised it and we allowed people to enter it. And it's time that we got back to that. The world is changing. The merchant bank approach to our economy is no longer enough. We need a government that knows that skills and a productive economy are absolutely central to our future. This is not a government that believes in it. Instead, it is a government that only sees the training of our young people and the tertiary education of our young people as a cost to be cut. This is not something that can continue. We look forward to a time when we have a Labor government who will deliver a budget that sees tertiary education as an investment and will back our young people in that.
Speaker, this principled, pragmatic government continues.
Order. I haven't called the member yet, but he can stand and ask.
I'll call him something in a minute.
Mr. Speaker.